As a mother of children, I cannot imagine what that must be like to send your children out into the world and fear for their safety with simple things like putting a hoodie on, like putting your hands in your pockets, like getting pulled over for a simple traffic violation, like having an officer break into your house wrongfully and then shoot you. I can't imagine what that must be like for Black mothers.
And of course, that is exactly what the world is like for mothers of Black children, parents who send their kids into the world every single day. It's something that mother, her kids, I have never had to live with. And here are just two anecdotes that show what is a common experience for a Black person in our city.
I think about when I was 14, or when I was young in Milwaukee. I mean, I was literally scared of the police till I got to college. Scared. If they stopped me, my heart would start racing. I almost got arrested a few times because my heart was racing. They said, you must have did something. And I think about what it took to overcome that.
I remember going to my aunt's house pretty late at night to pick up a cousin or to drop something off. And I'm sitting out in front of the house, and I hadn't done anything wrong. I'm just sitting in front of the house, waiting for my cousin to come out, and a police vehicle slowly crept up behind me in the street. And as soon as I turned around, there was an officer at my door. Didn't ask me to roll the window down to question me. Just opened the door, yanked me out, and made me sit on the curb like I had committed a crime, like I was a criminal, like I had done something.
8 minutes and 46 seconds. That now means something. It's the exact amount of time a Minneapolis police officer knelt on George Floyd's neck before he died. That piece of cell phone video has left Black families across the country to have the talk with their children. If you don't know about it, listen to my conversation with the Tolbert family.
My name is Christine Tolbert. This is my middle son, Amari. He's 12. That's Isaiah. He's 9. And my husband, Romeo. We also have a 23-year-old. And you have to have the talk. And that talk is not easy.
The talk, look, it's not the birds and the bees talk. It's what do you do when you have an encounter with an officer and you don't want that encounter to go wrong.
What's the best thing that your mom and dad have told you to make you feel safe?
Something that they told me that would help me that would make me feel safe is that when I'm older and I get pulled over by the police, I would just have to be calm and just do what the police tells me to do.
Do you remember what your parents said to you?
My parents always told me to be careful and be respectful. And they assumed that I wouldn't get myself into a situation that I shouldn't be in. But the truth of it all is, regardless of if you're out here doing something that you shouldn't be doing or not, the likelihood is still high because of the way you look. I mean, I've been put over twice in one day.
In one day?
One day. Driving through Brookfield and Wauwatosa. One day, within an hour and a half of each other. And in neither one of those predicaments did I walk away with a ticket. And I can tell you in both of those situations, my heart skipped beats, right, as I engaged with the individual I was engaging with. And, I'm very careful to make sure my window is already down. I'm very careful to make sure my ignition is already off. I'm very careful to make sure my license is already out and visible, and that there are no sudden movements, because you never know.
One of the things that we talked to them about this week also, when our oldest son was in middle school, he was stopped by the police for walking in our neighborhood, and they wanted to know what he was doing around in that neighborhood. And so one of the other conversations we had this week is not just what to do when you start driving and get pulled over. What do you do if you get stopped by the police and you're walking? And the whole conversation around don't take your ID out of your own pocket and, put your hands up and have them do it.
What do you wish you could tell people? Everybody.
That just if you get pulled over as a black or brown race, then you should be respectful, because if they think that you're pulling out a weapon, then they will think about shooting you.
Is that something that you worry about?
And that's why I follow my dad's footsteps of when you get pulled over.
Because you can't protect them past that. You can't love them past that. The only thing that you can do is to try to prepare them for when it happens.
And you say when?
When. I say when. You know, my husband has dealt with those situations for racial profiling and cases of discrimination, and I don't think it's a if, it's a when situation.
Well, it's frustrating, and it's emotional, and it's not something that is new. But you know, I firmly believe that, you know, as a black man, it's my responsibility to leave this place better than it was left for me.
These difficult conversations aren't just happening at home with parents. I sat down with a woman who spent more than 3 decades in the classroom who tells us there are teachable moments now and ahead.
We really need to build that.
Alice Pugh spent 33 years teaching in Milwaukee public schools.
What is his name? George Floyd.
And says the lessons being taught over the last few weeks will likely stick with students for the rest of their lives.
Black Lives Matter!
I really like that some of the protests now, the peaceful protests, are encouraging children to have a voice and to participate. They were out drawing with the chalk on the ground at the art museum, and they're oftentimes included in other activities that meet them where they are.
Black Lives Matter!
But as we know, some of the protests haven't been peaceful, but problematic. The images are hard to erase.
I can imagine they're feeling scared, you know, that they cannot trust police officers. To see a video with, you know, 3 police officers on one man and the man's pleading for his life, you know, is difficult.
What is the single biggest challenge you feel facing African American children, particularly young black males, going forward?
One of the biggest challenges, of course, is just being heard and being seen for who they are.
Black Lives Matter!
We just want to be respected. I'm sure they just want to feel as though they matter. For the young African American males, they want to feel safe. They want to feel as though their lives matter, and they want to feel heard, that they are important.
The retired teacher urges parents to stay optimistic and create an environment that builds their son or daughter's confidence during a time that can seem so confusing.
Continue to have hope that your child will grow up, make a difference, and we are depending upon you and your child to become that change. Things are going to get better.
You know, we've been here before. In the summer of 1967, a Catholic priest from Milwaukee led mostly peaceful protests demanding fair housing for all. There were riots in July of that summer, but Father James Groppe still led marchers all over Milwaukee for 200 nights, a movement that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called inspiring. The fight for fair housing in Milwaukee was just one of the reasons for demonstrations in the 1960s, but people demonstrated for civil rights all over America.
In a pivotal event, the bombing of an African-American church on a Sunday morning in Birmingham, Alabama. 4 young girls were killed. 4 Klansmen were eventually prosecuted. The results of that bombing and the protests that followed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The message of these last few weeks is that the work still needs to be done. Longtime community advocate Tyrone Dumas's cousin was one of those young girls killed in Birmingham.
I was angry back then. I mean, the reason I started voting is because my cousin was one of the 4 little girls in the 16th Street Baptist Church. And I always committed once, and I was only about 12 at the same time, I always committed that I would vote. And when I got to be 18, I got the register, and I've always voted because I always voted not only in her honor, but the honor of all those children who were just bombed by somebody who didn't think they should have the right to vote. I remember for a while we had that great movement in Milwaukee after all that we went through. We had community engagement, community policing, baseball police that were engaging children in their schools, and that was trying to bridge this gap. And you ask, where is that again? Does that have to start all over again? If racism was the issue every day, then nobody would get nothing. Because if you had to sit there and just say, well, what can I do? Well, they said I can't do this and I can't do that. I'm not driven by that. I'm driven by what I've dreamed to do, what I want to do.
Still to come, taking office during a turbulent time. Newly elected Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley's perspective on the challenges Milwaukee faces and where our community goes from here.
This is really only the first step. I feel like as a city we've been behind for a long time, so we need to continue to build bridges and bring people together.